Welcome back, guys. If you're here because you bought the pattern on my website for the Joker jacket or vest, thank you so much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. If not, you guys can take a look at my website, suspicioustumbleweed.com, where you will find this pattern, and you can watch this video and build it at the same time. On my website, you'll also find other things like past projects, past commission, a store where I sell prints, patterns, props, and apparel, and all kinds of information for you there. In this video, we're going to be making the jacket, the pants, and the vest for the Persona Joker commission. Hopefully you guys enjoy, so without further ado, let us begin. I want to start with the jacket. I'm using some fabric that I like to use for pattern testing. I'm using an existing pattern that I'm going to make changes to later. Of course, I'm only making half of the jacket in order to reduce waste. Here I'm editing the collar by adding masking tape and drawing with a Sharpie. This is typically how I edit patterns, though I'm not sure that's actually the proper way to do it, but it works. Once it's where I want it, I unsew the seams and trace the pattern onto some brown paper. And don't forget to label. I'm cutting the fabric now, one time in faux leather and one time in lining fabric. For the faux leather, I'm ironing on some interfacing on everything except for the sleeves. I only want stiffness in the body. I'm connecting the lining layer now at the front, side, front, and facing. On the faux leather part, I'm adding a fake decorative seam using the triple stitch. If your fabric refuses to glide, use water to help it along. The sleeves get seamed together next, followed by the rest of the body. I'm only seaming it up to the point of the triangle. I'm taking my pattern and folding the triangle to make it even on both sides. I put the insert in place and use Gutterman Glue to hold it into place, and now I'm just edge stitching it on. As you can see here, I also added a line of stitching on either side. While I'm at it, I'm also patterning the detail for the top of the shoulder. First with a sketch and then with a pen. Don't forget to add your seam allowance. The edges were folded inwards and temporarily glued down. Now I can sew along the edge nicely without worrying about the piece sliding out. By the way, I always use the edge of my presser foot as a guide for edge stitching. Here's more detail on the line of stitching from the back. With faux leather fabrics, I like to push the seams to one side or the other and stitch it down. It keeps things nice and flat and adds extra detail. Now, lining first, I'm setting the sleeves into the arm's eye. The collar is getting pillowcase lined with 2 layers of faux leather. Before turning it inside out, I'm notching the areas where the fabric will pull on the inside, any kind of inner curve. Clamps are being used to hold the faux leather in place so I can stitch along the edge to permanently hold it. I'm trimming the bottom of the jacket so it stays level so I can pillowcase line the inner layer. I left the upper corners of the back flap open, however, so I could hand sew it and have a cleaner finish. The cuffs are made the same way as the collar, but I'll be hand stitching them on. It is kind of difficult to pass a needle through all these layers, but I really like the effect it has. The buttons on the cuffs are only meant to be seen on one side, so I don't want the stitching showing through. So I'm going to be making sure I don't pass the needle through every layer while securing them. The collar was seamed on, and I'm also hand stitching the seam down to the lining layer for neatness. This jacket won't actually button up, so I'm adding decorative buttonholes for the illusion. I'm doing this using a wide zigzag stitch with a short stitch length and, of course, sewing the buttons to the other side. Alright, time for the pants. For the pants, I'm using an existing pattern and a nice semi-stretch dress pant fabric. Darts are taken in at the back and pockets are added to the front. I'm not really sure how to explain the process for adding pockets since I tend to just figure it out as I go each time, but I start by seaming the inside pocket to the outer opening and then press it. While I'm here, I also seam the waistband and need to press the center seam. The darts also get a nice press. Alright, here's the other side of the inner pocket. This side also has a continuation of the waistline included. Once sewn or overlocked, you could turn it inside out and it should end up like this. Now I'm making a sort of fly front, but I sort of came up with this on my own since I'm not using a zipper. To learn how to do a proper zipper fly front, I highly recommend this video linked in the description by the last stitch. Once pressed, I'm now finally seaming up the sides of the pants, taking extra care at the pocket area. To seam up the crotch, keep one side inside out and insert it into the other. My overlock machine is going to keep all of these seams nice and secure from potential fraying. The waistband gets sewn and turned inside out before seaming to the pants. This fabric was really great to iron. Everything turned out really crisp and neat. The hem of the pants is being turned twice, and an invisible hem will be necessary for a polished look. To do this, only grab a few threads with your needle and then pass through the rolled hem. I'm not doing a zipper here because I prefer the look of buttons for this costume. My machine has a buttonhole option, so I just use that. Fray stop is always something I like to use before opening those up, since you will be cutting into the weave. And now time to sew these black buttons on to the other side. Oh, and I can't forget to overlock the pockets. Alright, here we go on this puzzle of a vest. For the lining, I'm using this really pretty red taffeta salvaged from curtains. I'm transferring the guide for the dart using these perforations in the pattern. Now I can start seaming up the puzzle. I had to pattern this vest in a very strange way to have the shoulders move up smoothly to the neck. Don't forget to press your seams too before connecting any intersecting parts. And of course, the same steps are all repeated for the outer layer. Now that the easy puzzle is put together, this is how I patterned the annoying one. Lots and lots of masking tape on this side first, and then I'm using this guide for as long as I can until the rest just needs to be sketched freehand. I'm cutting these out section by section and sticking them to newsprint. Of course, all parts got labeled before separating them. Each part was transferred to brown paper and seam allowance added. And now the tedious task of cutting it all out. I'm folding the seam allowance away now so I can trace where it must absolutely be folded for it all to fit together. Lots of ironing and double checking with the original pattern. Don't forget, you can notch the fabric if it's pulling too much. Slowly but surely now, I'm adding a few spots of glue to hold each piece where they need to be. Be sure to leave enough space around so you can seam the lining together later. Once again carefully, never too careful, I'm sewing along the edges of each piece as evenly as possible. I'm finally able to sew the lining to the vest, so I'm being very careful not to snag any of the edges of the gray parts. To turn the edges more nicely, I'm cutting the excess and the corners. Once turned inside out and pressed, I'm hand sewing the back of the neck closed since that's the area I left unsewn to turn it all inside out. For the arm's eye, I'm just securing the lining with a running stitch before clamping the bias tape to finish off the edge nice and clean. I love clamps for bias tape since they really help get a nice even stitching on both sides. The zipper is temporarily glued to the fabric and I'm encasing the edge by hand using a herringbone stitch. Now I can sew it on the outside to keep it permanently in place. And here we have it all together. Keep in mind, guys, that if you're curious to see these projects made in full, I stream on twitch.tv/suspicioustumble. All links are down in the description for you there. If you followed along this video or bought the pattern to make the project, I would love to see what you've made, and you can share that progress with us in the Discord, also link in the description. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. For the Patreon and Twitch shoutouts, thank you so much. Your support is greatly appreciated. I'll see you guys soon. And as for the rest of you guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.